Authenticity always comes down to one thing, which is the willingness to be rejected for who you truly are. Ego is this phenomenal chameleon. It helps us to put on these different masks and personas for any kind of situation, to adapt to the constantly changing social world, just like our body is designed to navigate the constantly changing physical terrestrial world. But there is an issue with that adaptivity. We lose our sense of center. We are constantly responding and reacting to everyone that's around us. And this is something that people pleasers, myself included, struggle with. For a long time, this is something that I did all the time. I would be so afraid of conflict, so afraid of causing a scene, causing some kind of friction, being rejected or judged, that I would not be authentic. I would smile and laugh, and if somebody says that they liked a certain movie, then I would nod my head and say yes. If somebody said they liked a certain book, I'd say absolutely, yeah, that's great. I would always kind of nod my head and agree. But authenticity, the very essence of it, is that we are true to ourselves, regardless of the people around us and what they think. Now, there's a good reason why we are so prone to jettisoning authenticity. And it's something that Gabor Mate describes as basically the two human needs, the two core human needs we have are love and connection, essentially love, and authenticity. And when love/connection to another person or group, if that is threatened, authenticity always gets chucked. It always gets thrown out the window. And the reason why is because back in the day, in primordial times, before we were even human beings, being a social creature, a social mammal that was ostracized and kicked out of its group was essentially a death sentence. The core fear that all mammals share is the fear of being abandoned and torn to shreds. Because think about it, that is where we grew up, in the shadow of dinosaurs, in the jungles. Later on, when we were chimps and proto-humans, tigers and bears and God knows what else. And so being cast out of your social group was essentially, you weren't going to survive on your own. In the modern day, fast forward, we still have this fear encoded in us, but our brain is not good at distinguishing between what is imagined and what is symbolic and what is really a threat. So when on social media you get criticized or on YouTube comments, people type nasty things to you, the body and the brain reacts at first with panic and distress for most people. And it's because it has this real fear of, oh no, am I going to get kicked out? Am I going to get torn apart symbolically, socially, and then left to the wolves? And so when it comes to love and connection or authenticity, we will jettison our authenticity for the sake of love and connection. What this does, unfortunately, is it puts us in a compromised position where we essentially have, and you see this as adults grow up, more and more of these shells. In Kabbalah, they actually, they call them the kipot, which is this word for shell. And these shells in Kabbalah, they hide the divine light. They hide the divine spark. And that's exactly what happens emotionally, psychologically for human beings. As we grow up, we have these social constraints, these social shells that form around us, form around our core spark, our core authenticity. And it becomes harder and harder to break out of these shells. We become more and more ossified and rigid. And this ends up feeling like a kind of living mummification. I heard once a professor at Harvard Divinity School talk about the importance of breaking out of the mummy, not just once, but over and over and over again. Anytime this mummification starts, we have to break out of it. We have to literally break out of our shells. In order for what? In order for us to be authentic. Now, why is that so important? Have you ever felt on fire on the dance floor? Your song comes on and you just let loose. Have you ever felt like, if you've done improv or some kind of performance, when you really hit the flow, when you're just feel amazing and everything is effortless and you're funny, maybe at a party, with friends in a social setting, and it all just flows so easily. That is it. That is what it feels like to be authentic. And not only does it help us be more entertaining and funny at parties and help us potentially mate with other members of our species, it also helps us to actualize our unique gifts. It allows us, being authentic, allows us to show up in the world and say, hey, I have a vision. I have a new idea that is different than what we've been doing so far, because honestly, I think what we've been doing is kind of crap, and I have a better idea, or at least I have something that is coming up inside me that I feel like I can offer, and it's weird and it's different. Most people, they try to do this. They try and do this at some point in their lives, and they come up against a roadblock. They come up against criticism from their parents, from their peers, from their teachers. They come up with, we become basically conditioned to be afraid to try and be and do things that are really ambitious. And the world ends up being poorer for it. Fewer people are willing to take those chances. Fewer people are willing to break out of the shell, break out of the box, and deliver their gift to the world. Michael Meade references this African myth that every child that comes into this world comes bearing a cargo, comes bearing a gift to deliver to their community, to their tribe, to their people. And if we are not authentic to ourselves, if we're not true to this gift, to the reason why we're here, then we have stand no chance of actually fulfilling that purpose. And what ends up happening over years and decades is that we feel like day after day, week after month after year, it dies a little bit more inside of us. And we come to the end of our lives feeling like we never truly lived. That's one of the things that scared the bejesus out of me when I was younger. The thing that terrified me most was coming to the end of my life feeling like I never truly lived. And so I made a decision. I was going to figure out how. If it was going to kill me, I was going to figure out how to live. And it's led me on this path. And honestly, I am so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I took this path, because now when I think about death, it used to be such a motivator. It used to be such a motivator to get me up and going. Now it doesn't hit in the same way. I'm no longer worried if I die today or die tomorrow, because I feel like, and that's what happens when you are truly in alignment with your calling, and living it year in, year out in a way that you feel is true to you, true to who you are and what you came here for. Death can come any day. It's an old friend. It's something that is as natural as life itself. And if there's one thing that I could say, I think that if anyone is on their spiritual journey, one of the most powerful places to start is on this existential level. Existentialism, for those that aren't quite familiar with the philosophy, it's all about authenticity. It's all about confronting death, the fact that we are on this earth for a short amount of time, and God knows what happens after we leave. I don't. But it is this kind of fear. It is this fear that drives us to try and find our true selves, try and find a sense of how do we live in this world, in this body, in this age, in a way that is true to us. And existential dread or anxiety, this existential phase is often one of the first phases on the kind of progression towards spiritual awakening, towards non-duality. So if you're finding yourself in an existential kind of place and you're worried about authenticity, you're trying to be authentic, you're looking for that, fantastic. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's exactly where you should be. I read a research paper a little while ago that said that when we are able to assert ourselves and assert our energy, that is one of the most important things that we need to do in order to be able to start to really let go, really break through the social conditioning that keeps us performing, keeps us in that egoic survival dance. Because I remember what I said at the beginning. Ego is a chameleon. Ego is miraculous at taking on all these different shapes and forms, putting on all these different masks. But it is a poor substitute for the thing itself, for the core of who you are. And in that book Letting Go by forgetting the name of the author, Letting Go, I'll link it in the description. He says that on the kind of progression through the ladder of different states, from shame and guilt to fear and anger and all of that, there's a certain stage you get to that's a turning point, and that is the stage of courage. Because courage is what allows us to take our values, the things that we truly care about, and it allows us to make them real. Courage is the tipping point because that is what allows us to actualize, to manifest, to realize what is only vision and dream up to that point. Courage is that turning point. That is what allows us to live out our truth. So if there's anything that I could recommend to focus on if you feel like you're still early on in your spiritual journey, focus on courage. Focus on showing up as you truly are, with your family, with your friends. Start in your imagination. Start in front of your mirror. That's what I did. If you can do that, fantastic. Take baby steps. Go to where you feel safe to actually be a little bit silly, be a little bit weird. Go to an improv night where the very rule of the whole evening is you're supposed to be weird and wacky and strange. And put yourself in positions where you can let some of that spark burst out of the shells. You will be happier and more joyful for it. And best of all, the world will delight in your gifts. If you'd like to experience the power of spiritual psychology yourself, go down to the description and sign up for a one-on-one coaching consult with me. After booking a call, you'll automatically be considered for possible scholarship funding and get access to my newsletter, as well as receive a free 8-minute guided exercise to help tap into your true self. If you want more, down in the description, you'll also find a link to join my community circle, where we gather on Zoom every week to share nourishing conversation about spirituality and psychology. Or follow the links in the description to join the Stable Awakening Discord for a thought-provoking discussion and a monthly reading group where we read Alan Watts, Carl Jung, and other spiritual classics. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to connect with you soon.